Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to shoot a video that's basically an overview of LGT slash Damien Saber slash Crimson Dawn slash Darkwolf slash Mystic Knight Saber Cores. Now I've talked about this before, but LGT Saber Studio or Damien Studio, I'm debating as to which one is the original, but they both exist and they're both essentially the same thing. They are a manufacturer of a lot of the lightsabers that are on the market right now. So a lot of the sabers that you pick up from places like Outer Rim or Crimson Dawn or Darkwolf or Mystic Knight are essentially made by these same companies, LGT or Damien Saber, in China and sent out to various parts of the world to be distributed by various different vendors. So one of the things that sets their model apart from a lot of the others is that they have an interchangeable core. Now, this is something that I saw with Bendu Armory first, but LGT has sort of brought it to a broad spectrum of the saber world. And what that means is that you can get this pre-installed 1-inch outer diameter saber core right here, and you can pop this into virtually any of their sabers. The thing about these saber cores, they're really handy. If you've bought empty sabers in the past, you know that you can easily spend $400 on an installation for a saber. These things floating around means that all you need to install a saber is one of these. Now, I've talked about how you can use these on a lot of sabers in the market, or you can adapt certain sabers to them, but really they're designed to go with the LGT sabers because of the placement of the parts. So this guide basically is an overview, though, on what different versions of these are out there, because it gets a little bit complex. When you're floating around on their website, there are several options, and some of those options don't show up except for as add-ons to various sabers. You get out into the wild, and there's other options out there that don't exist on the LGT or Damien Saber site. So I wanted to go over what's available as of the time of the filming of this video and give you guys a little bit of a breakdown to help you try to understand this a little bit better. So let me start with the standard saber core models. Now these are the ones that you can find on LGT or Damien Saber on AliExpress. They're also the most easily available in the wild. There are 3 standard models. Now, I say that with reservation because there's more that you can find on there, but 3 standard models. There is a baselit smooth swing that you find floating around all over the place. Now, this is it right here, characterized by this white board. Sometimes they're in black, sometimes they're in clear, but in both cases, they're baselit, which means that the LED up at the top here shines a light down the blade. All right, baselit sabers are never going to be workable with a NeoPixel blade or a NeoPixel setup, but they're great for things like vanity blades, like Ripper blades. All right, so there's the baselit model. The baselit models generally, as of the time of this filming, have 9 sound fonts, and they have smooth swing, which means that when you move the blade, it hums responsively as opposed to making an aggressive break sort of hum. Smooth swing is kind of an industry standard these days. It requires gyroscopic motion sensing in these things. So the baselit has smooth swing. It has 9 sound fonts. Now the thing about it is, in terms of standardization, what sound fonts you get with your saber is kind of up in the air. I have 2 different of these boards. They both have different sound fonts attached with them. One of them is slightly older than the other. So they both have 9, they both have smooth swing. They are both essentially the same board. I think all those chips are in the same place, but they have different sound fonts on them. Now these do not have USB cards, so there's no way to change those sound fonts. It has on it what it has on it, and it will always have that on it. Okay, so these, if you find them around, they're usually between $50 and $60, something in that neighborhood. All right, the next level up that you're going to find around a lot is a Xenopixel core. Now the Xenopixel core has a NeoPixel setup, so it's got these push pins that are for connecting to a NeoPixel blade. It will not light up without a NeoPixel blade. All right, it has a USB card right there. The model of the Xenopixel that they've got on their website right now, their current firmware, I believe, has 48 sound fonts on it. I'm going to do a review on this Xenopixel board specifically and talk about pros and cons of this setup. But it's got a lot of sound fonts on it. They're on this memory card right here. So you can add more sound fonts, you can take sound fonts off, you can update the firmware. They say that they have updates about every month, so you can get new firmware for them with new features or blade styles or whatever. Put it on this memory card and load it into this board. So this is the Xenopixel. It is customizable to an extent. It's got a lot of presets in there. It can do what they allow it to do, or what you can figure out how to make it do. But the Xenopixel setup is around $70-ish, 70 to 110, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on where you get it from and how much shipping is going to cost you. But anyhow, this is the customizable mid model. All right, the top-end model that you can find most readily in the wild is a Profi board model. Now, I don't have one of those here. That's the only one I don't have. The Profi board is fully customizable, open source. Problem with the Profi board is if you like their presets, great. Use it like a Xenopixel and it's wonderful. It can do anything, pretty much. I mean, it's not going to make you breakfast or anything like that, but it can do anything that a lightsaber is, or that you can figure out how to make a lightsaber do. The thing about the Profi board is it is a lot more expensive. The difference between these two is about 20 bucks between the base lid and the Xenopixel. The Profi board direct from their site is 120, so it's another 50 bucks on top of that. You find it out in the wild in different places. You could be paying as much as 170 for the Profi board setup. I've actually seen it up in the 200s, actually, now that I think about it. But somewhere between 120 and $200 for the Profi board setup. And to get the most out of it, you got to be able to program Arduino and hook it up to a computer and figure out how to load code onto it and all kinds of stuff that's great for code people. But for the standard lightsaber user is the difference in cost and compatibility between the Xenopixel and the Profi. If you're just going to go with the presets, not really worth it. If you're going to customize it and do all kinds of cool stuff with it, then great, go up to the Profi. But those are the three models that are out there in the wild most often. All right, the other model that's on their website, if you go looking for sabers on the AliExpress site, a lot of the base prices that you're going to find for a saber with sound is based off of this guy right here. So these are the ones that you upgrade away from on the website, and this is the 4 sound font model. Now this one also does not have a memory card, so the 4 sound fonts that are on here are the ones that are on here. You notice a green board here, a lot of these have. You also notice these little tubes right here. Let me get this close enough so that maybe you can hear this. Okay, I'm hoping that you can hear that through the screen, but you hear that rattle right there? Instead of a gyroscope, this is an angle sensor. So the motion detection on these is really bad. I mean, it's like right there with the Master Effects old school Star Wars lightsabers. You swing them sometimes and they do nothing. You look at them funny and they make a swing noise. So this thing right here is sound. It's got the buzz, it's got the power on, it can clash, all those things. It's pretty good at clash. But in terms of movement sensitivity, this one is like way far back in the prehistory of lightsaber technology. All right, these things, the price to upgrade from one of these to one of these on their website is about $11. So they don't seem to sell these separately, which kind of makes sense, but this is what comes in the cheapest of the cheap lightsabers that they offer. For an $11 upgrade, you can upgrade to at least this one, and that's definitely worth the $11. All right, so those are the 3 standard models, and then there's this one that floats around in the sabers themselves if you take the cheapest possible option. You can also find other models out there sometimes that they'll offer and then disappear from the website. One such is this one right here, which was their Eco NeoPixel board. This was before they came out with the Xenopixel, or right around the same time they came out with the Xenopixel. This is a smooth swing board with a memory card in it, so it's customizable, but it's not as customizable as the Xenopixel, and it doesn't have like the gesture commands and stuff like that. So it was somewhere in between the two, and in cost it was around there as well. You can also find out in the wild exclusive installs from various vendors. One example of which would be this one right here, which is a Golden Harvest NeoPixel. Okay, the Golden Harvest board is a board that you find a lot in custom sabers from sabersmiths all over the place. A lot like the Profi board. But the AliExpress store for LGT offers the Profi board. They don't offer this. They install these and they send them out to certain of their vendors. So you can get these from Crimson Dawn or Darkwolf or Mystic Knights, but you can't get them direct from the source. So you're going to end up paying between 170 and 200 because you're paying a markup as well. But this is a Golden Harvest board. I'll talk about the Golden Harvest board a little bit later down the road, but this is an install that you only get through certain of their vendors. I've also seen other installations, like Darkwolf had a Golden Harvest board that also had some accent LEDs up at the top, so that when you turned it on without a blade in it, it still made light. So these sort of custom or exclusive installs that you find, they exist, they're out there. For the most part, they're installed directly by LGT and then released into the wild, but not released directly to consumers. All right, so that's pretty much what you've got. You've got the weird models here and there. Oh, there was a Profi board model without a USB card that's floating around out there as well. So some of the Profi sabers are like a Profi Lite, and you can't customize them. They are just the presets. So you'll find weird stuff floating around from time to time. But as of right now, the three standard models are the Baselit Smooth Swing, the Xenopixel, and the Profi. And then the other models that are fairly easy to get are the 4-sound budget model and the Golden Harvest board. All right, so let's talk about blade connection. I've mentioned that at least a little bit. The cheaper models, including the Smooth Swing model and the budget model, are all baselit. So if you have like a ripper blade, this is the one you're going to need because it shines light. Here, let me actually fire up this real budget one so you can see. There we go, it shines light. All right, that gave you a little bit of an idea of the motion sensitivity on that guy. But they shine light, so they'll work for the vanity blades, they'll work for most of the dueling blades that you find out there. The budget models have that feature. If you want all the customization of a Xenopixel or a Profi or a Golden Harvest in baselit, you can't get it. Unless you can find a way to get it out there somewhere as an exclusive of some kind. But for the most part, you can't get it. If you want the customizability, they lock you into the NeoPixel models, all right, with this sort of pin setup. So if you're going to use something like this with a ripper blade, you need an adapter that turns this pin into a tricree. And those adapters are out there. LGT doesn't sell them, but POC Store and SaberMock or War Sabers do. Not SaberMock, War Sabers. So anyhow, the more customizable versions only have the NeoPixel setup. So the Profi, the Golden Harvest. The Golden Harvest that actually creates the light from Darkwolf, it creates light, but it doesn't create enough light to really light a blade well, so it's not really a solution to that. So there's baselit and there's NeoPixel models. The higher end stuff is all NeoPixel, the lower end stuff is all baselit. In terms of recharge ports, there's two different recharge ports that you're going to find on these things as well. There's a barrel recharge port, like this one. This is the most common, and a lot of the sabers are set up with these two holes for the barrel recharge port. More frequently these days, they're also putting in a C-type USB, like you see here on this Xenopixel. Now the C-type USB, the hilts that are designed for it look like that. Instead of two holes, we have a hole and we have a slot. All right. So the C-type USBs are small enough that you can put one of these in one of these, and the USB comes out through there. There's some void space around it that's maybe a little bit dangerous because you run the risk of stuff falling into your saber, but I could put this in this. You cannot put the barrel type inside one of the hilts that has the setup for those C or for the USB-C. So like for instance, their new Revan model that they came out with, the hilt itself is only set up for the USB-C. So if you've got one of these older ones with the barrel, or if you've got one of these like newer exclusive Golden Harvests or something like that, You cannot use this hilt with that saber unless you leave the buttons sucked in. I'll talk about that in a second here, but you leave the buttons sucked in so that you have to really poke at it, and you can't get to the you can't get to the recharge port without taking out the core. So you can technically, but it's really, really a bad solution. All right, so there's two different types of rechargers. Compatibility, as I mentioned, it used to be that all LGT hilts would take all LGT cores. These days with the C-type, that's not necessarily the case. Also, some of the C-types, when you put these things into the sabers, the original setup looked like this. 2 holes, a hole on either side, and you put a screw in these things and screwed them in to to install the hilt. Okay, what that did was, if you see these 2 holes right here, when you screw those in, which one of these is loose enough I can show you? There we go. When you screw these in, it pulls the button and the recharge port up so that they're flush with the outer section, so they're not way down in there. They pop up so that they're flush with the outside of the saber. All right, like that. Okay, the newer C-type don't have those guide screws. There's a hole for it, but there's no barrel in there to do that with. They use a screw in the back. A lot of the newer hilts don't have those 2 screws on either side. What they have instead is a screw in the back. Now this is a long screw that goes in there, fits right there in the back of the board, and pushes the board up from the back into the rest of the saber. So whenever you get one of these cores, it's going to come with a screw set that has both types. So if you're using a core or a saber that requires you to screw in from the front, it's got those screws. If it's screwing in from the back, it's got that longer screw as well. All right, but keep in mind that some of the sabers you can't install from the front. All of them you can install from the back, and that's much more common with a lot of their sabers right now. As I mentioned, the compatibility, I can use pretty much all of them in one of these budget hilts that has the barrels and the screw from the back. This one will take any of them that exist right now. Okay, if it's got the C-type connection, it'll only take the C-type, or if I put one of the others in it, I can't push the buttons up in. The buttons are still going to be stuck down at the bottom and the hilt's going to be loose, so I don't really want to do that. So not as universally compatible as they used to be. But at any rate, it's confusing, and like I said, when you get these things, you're going to get something. Who knows what sound fonts are going to be on it. If it's customizable, you can always update it to the newest version, get the new sound fonts, go find old sound fonts, whatever. If it's one of the smooth swing boards that's not customizable, then you're going to get what you get. Sometimes they'll list what the fonts are, sometimes they won't. Right, if it's one of the budget boards, then you're not going to get customizable, and you probably should spend the extra $11 to get away from this. All right, so hopefully that's helped you guys sort of navigate this. It's a complicated field, and by the time I'm done filming this, I'm sure there will be some other variant out there. But for the most part, they mostly work in most of the sabers and mostly have the features that you've got here. There will be exceptions to this. There are exceptions right now, things like this this EcoBoard NeoPixel right here. So hopefully this helped you guys at least a little bit and didn't just confuse you. But now you know a little bit about what some of those drop-downs mean when you're browsing around on some of the vendors' websites. All right, I'll see you back next time.